Upniks, who had a steady start in the first couple of rounds, but as he does, if there's running in an event, he has got to be one of your top picks, as this is his third event win, as he takes event number 1 at a time of 20:20:47, and that'll start off his bid back to the CrossFit Games with 100 points. Some familiar names at the top of the leaderboard, with 2 rookies holding down the final 2 qualifying spots. 10 spots at the CrossFit Games here for the individual men, as we get set for event number 2. As the men will kick things off, 5 rounds for time, 100 double unders, 20 toes to bar, 10 front squats at 225 pounds. And Lucy, as we look at this, let's take a peek at our Go Ruck steps to success.
So number 1 would be relaxed and unbroken on those double unders and toes to bar, so that number 2, we can keep a strong squat pace on those front squats and reduce that time under tension through the midline.
Your 10 men in the first heat. Kicking things off to start day number 2, a surprising finish for 2 athletes in this heat. And down in lane number 10, Bronislav Olenkowicz, who made the CrossFit Games for the first time last year, it started off the weekend with a 40th place in event number 1 with 5 events to go, knowing a potential event win is on the horizon in that snatch ladder.
Yeah, so event 1 was definitely a weakness event for Bron, but he does have those best events to come, so it'll be interesting to see how he can draw a line under yesterday and take each event as it comes today.
And I think the bigger surprise actually was Yona Koski, 34th place finish after winning the Open and quarterfinals. And more on Yona, let's go down to Lauren Smith.
Pretty good runner. I spoke to his coach, Yami Taknan, earliest day in warm-up, and he said it's nothing to worry about. It's just one of those things that happened, and he's expecting a huge reaction in this heat. Not just that, he's got a background in comebacks as well. Even if you look back to last year at semifinals, his opening event was a 15th place finish, and he rounded off the weekend in 5th. Back further still to his debut in 2013, his worst event finish was in 31st, and he still finished 10th. So at this stage, not much to worry about, and expect something big from Yona in this event.
Thank you, Lauren. And he's got a good thing to have that finish, at least on the first day of competition in only 1 event. Win at CrossFit World Tour, visiting CrossFit gyms around the globe. Create an account and scan the QR code, or visit hustleup-app.com to enter. That's it. Draw will take place on June 20th, 2024. Heat 1 men, event number 2, starting with 100 double unders in. And Lucy, you look at the total volume of double unders. Oftentimes we'll see maybe 50 for multiple rounds, sets of 100. It's personally for me, it's nice to see the double unders make a legitimate appearance in a CrossFit event.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially after, you know, the volume of running yesterday, they will definitely feel this after today in their calves, and it'll be interesting to see sort of how that impacts any of the other events. Obviously, we've got the box jump overs as well in the legless rope climb event coming. So, yeah, there's a lot through that bounding over this weekend.
Off the toes to bar, unbroken on the first round. In lane number 6, it's Callum Clements, one of several Spanish athletes that are making their way onto the scene as they're working into their first round of 10 front squat. Yona Koski on the right side is with that 34th place finish. Lucy, Yona has to start getting top 5s the rest of the way. That is a slow start for a very good athlete.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously, as we said yesterday, it's an interesting one here because he does have to start getting top 5s, and yet at the same time, this is a multiple round workout, and so he needs to be careful not to push too hard too soon on this.
Round number 1 is done. 5 total rounds of this. Started with a 5-round event yesterday with the clean and jerks at 185 for the men. And as we said earlier, those 800-meter runs. Starting the 2nd round of 100 double unders. Yona Koski on the right, Caleb Clements on the left. Caleb Clements, 27 years old. This is his 3rd semifinal, as he is sitting in this first heat next to Yona Koski. 34th place to start the weekend. Just 12 points for Jonakoski as him and Caleb move to the rig for the second time, 20 toes to bar. And we saw them go unbroken on the first round, Lucy, and you talked about maybe the compounding effect of this event with the double unders, the toes to bar, and then the front squats. And getting in that second round, you start to get into a rhythm and feel kind of how your body's responding to the event.
Yeah, exactly. You'll feel it a little bit more. Interestingly, you can just see Jona's feet are clipping that riser a little bit on these toes to bar, and he's taken a quick break there. I think this will be the deciding factor here for a lot of athletes, is if you can't hold these movements unbroken, which movements do you break? And usually you want to break the movement that is least costly to break. So it's obviously taking longer to drop the bar and clean it back up on those front squats than it is to drop down quickly and get back onto the rig for those toes to bar.
Caleb Clements in the center part of your screen next to Jonakoski has about a 1-rep lead on Jona, but on the first round, it's Jona's front squat cycling that got him back in the pace with Caleb Clements. As you can see, Jona drops the bar and advances just ahead of Caleb. So Caleb moving ahead on the double unders and toes to bar, but Jonakoski now jogging back to the pull-up rig. Tobias Fox sitting in 35th overall, just behind Jonakoski, third place in this heat out of Hamburg, Germany. And already at the second round, we have Jona and Caleb pulling ahead of the field. Bit of a two-horse race so far, approaching the third round of this 5-round event. Lucy, when you're watching this and you see Jona running back to the rope, what does that say to you as far as like maybe his confidence coming into this second event versus what happened in the first one?
Yeah, I mean, you can see that it's one of those things where he was purposefully taking his time through that first round, and now that we're getting into the second and third rounds, we're building through that workout through each round. And every time he makes a move on that front squat bar purely because of that squat pace versus Caleb Clements in lane number 6.
See, Bronislav Olenkowicz in the fore part of your screen is actually keeping pace because of his cycle rate on the front squats, and that's something unique to this event, Lucy, because with 100 double unders, that's enough volume to make a difference if you can be comfortably unbroken as far as the pace versus having to break it up. But the same thing on the toes bar could it be said on the front squats. Maybe a quick break on the toes to bar can lead to a faster cycle rate on the front squats, but how you manage that has to be skill dependent for the individual.
Yeah, exactly, and it's all about knowing yourself, knowing your capacity, knowing when you're starting to feel that midline fatigue on the front squats, and actually whether or not the next round is going to be that deciding factor of whether or not you decide to break those toes to bar nice and quickly.
Now, as Caleb Clements and Jonakoski on the left advance to the front squats at about the 6-minute mark, Bronislav Olenkowicz on the right side in lane 10 is starting his toes to bar yet. We'll keep an eye on the time in which he can make up when he gets to the rig, but Jonakoski still cycling those front squats much quicker than Caleb. Now, Caleb sitting at 6 foot 210. Cycle rate probably isn't going to be as fast as Jonakoski.
It's that little pause that he's taking at the top of each step, each rep, that's making the difference there, because Jona is just going at that pace, start to finish, whereas Callum does start to slow down as we get to the last reps.
Jonakoski picking up his rope as Bronislav Olenkowicz makes his way to the bar. Bronislav, one of the strongest athletes in the field, which will be on full display in that snatch ladder coming up tomorrow. And this is just as much of a weapon as anything else. So, and I think the rep schemes that they've put in place here, right? Say you've got your maximum capacity, maybe have to take a break on the front squats. You can kind of shell game that a little bit based off how you go unbroken or not.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, do you manage your weakness so that you can push the thing that you are stronger at, or do you try to push your weakness knowing that you've got your strength in the bank?
Jonakoski was taking a bit of a break, putting his elbows on his knees. On the left side of your screen in lane number 1, that's Kevin Jers. Kevin Jers out of Talon CrossFit. This is his third semifinal. Best finish at any semifinal was 19th in 2021. But actually won the barbell complex at the 2022 semifinals as Jonakoski in the center lane is just starting to pull ahead. To be expected, I mean, this is heat 1. We did not expect Jonakoski to be in heat 1 of 4. We still have 3 heats of individual men after this, and the slight disadvantage of being in the first heat is knowing you've got 3 heats of athletes watching you perform.
Yeah, exactly. For him, it's about, he can't rest his laurels on just winning this heat. He needs to be thinking about pushing that time. It's not just about sort of making sure that you're staying ahead for him. He's looking to jump into that top heat.
Jonakoski, 2 reps left to go, took a break at 15, was unbroken the first 2 rounds. As he's moving into this 4th set of front squats, again, the weight at 225. Jonakoski, who has been competing at the game since 2014, yet still only 29 years old. And the biggest surprise for Jona is just how good he's looked this season so far. Had a great games last year. Seems to be healthy for the first time in a long time in his career. As Jonakoski has 1 last squat, and he will advance the bar forward with 1 round left as we're past the 9-minute mark. As Caleb Clements still secure in that 2nd place position in the center part of your screen as Jonakoski walks back to the rig.
It's interesting to see him back walking this now, because I wonder whether that jog back on round 2 was actually a little bit of a psychological thing, because him and Callum Clements were neck and neck up until that point, and so it was just seeing if he could sort of mentally break him by being like, you know what, I'm still fresh in this.
Jonakoski working in his last set of 100 double unders. They're slowly approaching the 10-minute mark, 18-minute cap for this event. And there's that break, and the break is okay, but the body language might not be so.
Yeah, he is breathing pretty deeply now. I mean, understandably so. This is obviously the last round, but now he needs to keep the tempo that he's set in the first 4 rounds.
Jonakoski is about to potentially lap some of these athletes in the field for this first heat, but Lucy, we talked earlier as Jona takes another break and a bent over as he does it, is that, you know, those breaks might look differently if we're in the 4th heat in a competitive field of athletes than it does in the first heat. How do you keep pushing that pace knowing you have 30 athletes left to go?
I think that's the thing. You've only got to remember that you've got 30 athletes left to go, and actually you are setting the time to beat, knowing that they are all coming, knowing your time.
Jonakoski done with 100 double unders, moving to the rig, 20 toes to bar. 5th round, 100 total for this event. As in the last round, Jona went 15-5. And though he's taken some bigger breaks on the double unders, not necessarily so much on the toes to bar, but his cycle rate on the squats hasn't changed at all.
No, not at all. I think as well, it's usually a lot easier to breathe through the toes to bar than it is the double unders. Double unders for elite level athletes are usually a fairly relaxed movement. It is on a lot of workouts your chance to be able to breathe. But with this volume, that's where you'll start to see the difference.
Jona has 5 reps left as Caleb Clements, still sitting in that 2nd place position, starts his toes to bar off with a no rep. As Jonakoski's 1 and done and off to the front squats. And this is big for Jona, knowing he's got 3 heats left to go, 30 men still waiting to take on event number 2. As Jonakoski gets to that 225-pound barbell with 10 front squats left to go. Five reps left to go for Jonakoski. He's got to get over the bar and cross the finish line to stop the time. As Jonakoski is looking to bounce back after a tough event number 1, as he'll take heat number 2. Just after that 12-minute time, Caleb Clements and into his last 10 front squats. So a good performance for Caleb, who's sitting at 32nd overall after day number 1, but just 1 event yesterday. Still 5 more events to go for the weekend. 2 today, 3 tomorrow. as Clemens will pass the finish line at about 12:53. The right side of your screen in the yellow shorts, Tobias Fox trying to hold off lane 1, Kevin Schurz.
Really good squat pace with the Tobias squat.
Kevin Schurz is putting it on here towards the end, but Tobias just enough to stay ahead of him, and he'll finish right out behind 13:15, with Kevin Schurz behind him, 13:20. Jamie Gonzalez will cross the finish line. Lewis Kuhler, unaffiliated, 33rd place yesterday, will cross the finish line here. Bronislav Olenkowicz. Again, getting 40th to kick off the weekend yesterday. And we were saying if he's going to try to find himself in the top 10, he's going to need to start finding himself more in the top 5 with other events. And this is another tough finish for Bronislav, as it's good enough for 7th in this heat. The unfortunate part, this is heat number 1. 2 athletes left on the competition floor. Lane number 9 making his way to the barbell, Jules Castor. You can see the fatigue. We saw a lot of the same body language after event number 1 yesterday. As Jules Castor is working on his last 10 front squats. Caps 18 minutes as we're approaching the 15-minute mark. Nobody is in danger of being time capped. As Castor will cross the finish line right at that 15-minute mark. With 1 athlete left on the floor, Mikko Liliorg, also out of Talon CrossFit. Kevin Schurz in lane number 1, representing Talon CrossFit as well. As Liliorg makes his way to the barbell. And Lucy, we've seen a lot of athletes get fatigued over here of the double unders toes to bar, yet it seems when they get to this barbell, doesn't really seem that big of an, we haven't really seen anybody struggle here.
I think that's usually an indication of actually it's their heart rate that's hitting them on the double unders, rather than any of that midline fatigue that we spoke about. So they can still hold that strong squat pace, which is, I mean, good to see, but then the challenges of double unders.
Jonakoski, unofficially 12:20, will get first in this heat, and then he will have to sit, wait, and watch to see how that time holds up for the next 3 heats.
So we had that early lead from Clements in lane number 6, but Jonas stayed with him pretty much through those first 2 rounds, and then we saw him start to pull away in rounds 3 and 4. Nice and smooth on the double unders, but obviously we saw them start to get him on the last couple of rounds. Kept that steady squat pace throughout, which is great to see. Those tactical breaks, 15 and 5 on the toaster bar, nice and smooth. And then that last set, finishing the line in first in that first heat, but it'll be interesting to see if that time can